Good morning, all participants from different parts of state and from different educational institutions. As you know, the now the most important talk of the educational institution is new education policy and its implementation. For this, Department of Political Science is going to organize national webinar on implementation of new education policy. Before starting this, I want to tell you something about our GGDST College, Haryana. GGDST College Haryana was established in 1945. Earlier, it was known as Hindu National College. And this educational institution was started by Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya, one of the great national leader and the Bharat Ratna Award winner. And with the passage of time, the outlook of this institution has changed under the academic leadership of the principal Dr. Rajiv Kumar, and with the blessings and even guidance of our beloved President Dr. Shiv Kumar Sharma, ex-MLA and President, Shri Sanatan Dharam Pratinidhi Sabha, New Delhi, Dr. Gurdeep Kumar Sharma, Secretary and of the Management Committee. Our college has produced excellent alumni who served on top class posts like Bihar ex Chief Secretary Sardar Nirmal Singh. Some of our other officials reached up to the rank of income tax commissioners and they served in Indian Revenue Services. Some DIG rank officers and many other commissioned officers of Indian Army are the alumni of our college. Some of our students reached up to the level of professors in America and in Australia. And about Department of Political Science, I want to tell you the Department of Political Science was established in 1945, and this department is committed to provide quality education and overall growth of students. The department is continuously involved in various academic and curricular activities. The department observes days like National Voters Day, Constitution Day, and Human Rights Day, etc., to make students aware and responsible citizens of India. And former Vice Chancellor of Punjab University, Chandigarh, Professor Dr. M. Puri also served the Department of Political Science of our college as a faculty member in 1950s. And now I shift mic to our worthy principal, Dr. Rajiv Kumarji, for the formal welcome of our resource person, Dr. Kamla, University School of Open Learning, Department of Political Science, Punjab University, Chandigarh, USO, and our next resource person, Mr. Brijesh, Advocate, Punjab and Haryana High Court. Now I shift mic to our worthy principal, Dr. Rajiv Kumar.
Hello. Hello. Thank you very much, sir.
Hi.
Yes. Thank you very much, Professor Rajiv. First of all, I extend my thanks and greetings to the Department of Political Science for organizing this wonderful event. The highlights for the webinar are the presence of Dr. Kamla, University School of Open Learning, Department of Political Science, Punjab University, Chandigarh, and University Chandigarh, and Mr. Brijesh, Advocate, Punjab and Haryana High Court, Chandigarh, who are the resource persons of this webinar. On the behalf of management, staff, and the students, I welcome Dr. Kamla and Mr. Brijesh and all the participants who have joined this event. As we know, National Education Policy 2020 has been approved by the Union Cabinet of India on July 29th, 2020. It replaces the previous National Education Policy on education in 1986. The major highlights of this policy for the higher education especially are the single regulator for higher education institutions, multiple entry and exit system, is continuation of MPhil programs, common entrance examinations for all universities, etc. This policy would transform the education sector in the country as it focuses on making education accessible, equitable, inclusive, but only if it is implemented at all levels. So, the main challenge of this policy is to implement. That is because it is very comprehensive policy. So, keeping in view the implementation of the new policy, this webinar has been chosen for the webinar. So, I hope that webinar would be beneficial to all the participants. So, I would not go further because we are sitting here to listen Dr. Kamla and Mr. Brijesh, which are the resource person for today's webinar. So I again welcome to our resource persons and our participants. So now over to the organizers for the further program. Thank you very much.
Sir, your mic is off. Hello, sir. Sir, your mic is off.
सर आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही, माइक बंद है आपका।
Now I want to tell you something about the profile of our resource person, Dr. Kamla. Dr. Kamla, madam, has very strong academic record with PhD from Punjab University, Chandigarh, and has specialization in human rights. Dr. Kamla has published a number of research papers in different journals and articles and chapters in many books. She has also presented papers in national as well as international conferences, seminars. She holds number of academic and administrative positions like member of academic committee of CSSEIP, Punjab University, Chandigarh for many years. She also holds the position as a member of pre-RDC committee in the CSSEIP, Punjab University, Chandigarh. She also acted as a coordinator in the national conference on the theme Minority Rights in India, Problems, Experiences and Apprehensions, organized by CSSEIP, Punjab University, Chandigarh, and it was sponsored by Ministry of Minority Affairs, Government of India. Along with all this, she has chaired a number of sessions in different state level and national level seminars and conferences. A number of research scholars are doing their PhD under the academic command of Dr. Kamla. Now I shift mic to our resource person, Dr. Kamla, for her thoughts on the new education policy. Over to Madam Kamla.
Thank you, Dr. Rajiv ji. First of all, I would like to congratulate Chief Patron of the webinar, Dr. Gurdeep Kumar Sharma ji. Patron, Dr. Rajiv Kumar, Principal of the college, and webinar convener, Dr. Rajiv, for organizing a webinar on such a vibrant topic, national education policy. As we know, education is always an important issue in everyone's life. It is the key to success in the future. Education provides us the better employment opportunity. Better education system always provide us the better opportunities, better employment opportunities. Education not only provide us the employment opportunity, it also eliminates our mind and thinking and develop the overall personality of the human being. Education makes us aware about our rights and duties toward the nation and society. Education makes us a responsible and visionary citizen. Better education system develop a child from the very early childhood. For that, we need a good education system. And after a gap of 34 years, we got a new education system. Union Cabinet approved a national policy on July 29 after a gap of 34 years. The National Education Policy announced by the Ministry of Human Resource Development, and this policy has been made public and open for the feedback. As Rajiv already told about, the objective of this webinar is to discuss the different aspect of this education policy and provide the feedback to the government. Before this policy, we had two national policy on education. One was passed in the year 1968 on the recommendations of Katari Commission. Other was passed in 1986, and that policy was slightly modified by P.V. Rao government in 1992. Along with these two policies, we have also national policy on education, which was emphasized to bring total reform in education sector. Objective of this policy was to pave the way for education to all sections of society, with special emphasis on scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, and backward classes who was earlier deprived of education. After 34 years, we have the new education policy initiated by the Modi government. This is called as National Education Policy under the chairmanship of Chief K. Kasturi Rangan. Main proposal of this policy we will discuss here. National Education Policy proposes to the school curricular structure from the current 10+2 to 5+3+3+4 structure. Out of these are the 4 stages. Out of these 4 stages, first 5 years will comprise as foundational stage. At this stage will be divided into 2 compartments, initially for 3 years and then again divided into 2 years. This will be called preschool people. At this stage, students will be taught language skill, cognitive skill, and how to identify things. This stage, the learning of this stage will be based on the activity and play-based learning. Next is the second stage, that will be called preparatory stage. This stage will include the student of age group of 8 to 11 and class 3 to 5. Next is the stage preparatory stage. This stage will include the students of class 3 to 5. Most important point during this particular period is students will learn and taught in local language or the mother tongue or in that particular state language. That state will decide which will be the 3 languages the student will study. This stage, the learning of this stage will focus on discovery, activity-based and interactive classroom. All learning activities will help in mother tongue or local language. Next stage is the middle stage. This will comprise the age group of 11 to 14 years from class 6 to 8 standard. student will start learning all coding and vocational training from class 6 onward. Computer coding will be taught all the student after 6th standard. Next is the stage 4, that is called secondary stage. This will be a multidisciplinary in nature. Focus will be on developing critical thinking of the child. Flexibility will be given to the student for choice of subject. Progressive shift towards the scientific approach on the education. Students will be take the exam twice a year. After the school education, we will discuss the changes in the higher education. Higher education, the most important thing is the multiple exit and entry point. Multidisciplinary bachelor's program with exit options. What is the new program the government is planning to come up with? For this, for example, if there is a 3-year course, a student, a BA or BSc student, that this course will be divided into 3 compartments. There is a student who happen to clear the first year. We can exit the program after completion. He can exit the program after completion of 1 year. If he exit the program after completion of 1 year, he will be given certificate. If he complete the second year of the course, he will be given diploma. If he completes the third year of the program, he will be given bachelor's degree. If he completes the fourth year of the program, he will be given bachelor's degree with research certificates as well. If student has bachelor degree with research certificates, he can just finish the master's degree in 1 year, and after completing 1 year of degree, master's degree, he can directly join the PhD. So for the students, the biggest change may be the introduction of 4-year undergraduate degree with option for entry and exit at various stages. Other main features of these policies are the National Council of Education and Research and Training will be introduced a curricular framework for the new school structure, including early childhood care by the next academic year. The National Testing Agency will introduce the common test by December 2020, which will choose for the admission to all Institute of Eminence and Central University in 2021. All education institutions bearing medical and law colleges will be under the purview of single regulator. National education policy also aims at holistic education by inviting the convergence of science and arts stream. There will be no rigid separation between arts and science. Students can select the subject of their choice. Next is National Education Policy states that selected foreign university, those from among the top 100 universities in the world, will be facilitated to operate in India. This is a welcome step, as it will enhance the competition among higher education institutions and improve the overall standard of higher education and research. This will also lead to sudden fee hike and a reduction in employment security of the academic staff. On the other hand, some suggest that we need to rebuild our own university instead of inviting university from other countries. Next feature of this policy is Academic Bank of Credit to be established to facilitate transfer of credits earned from different higher education institutes so that these can be transferred and counted toward final degree earned. Government in this policy, under this policy, government will also phase out the affiliation college in 15-year, and a stage-wise mechanism is to be established for granting autonomy to colleges. Each of the autonomous college will have a board of governors, which will be constituted according to their will. They will have complete power. There would not be democratic representation at the decision-making level. In case of universities, there will be no executive council. There will be a board of governors and no elected representative there will be completely undemocratic and ideologically controlled by those in power. The next important thing is the scrapping of two institutions. One is the UGC, other is the AICTE. AICTE is looking at the technical aspect of the technological education. UGC has two important roles at present. One is the distribution of funds to the colleges and universities, and other is the regulatory one. Now this function, these bodies will be replaced with Higher Education Commission. Basically, it will have four verticals which will carry out the functions of regulating, accreditation, funding and financing of higher education, setting standards of the expected learning outcome of higher education. While this single regulatory body, while some people see it as a way to reduce red tapeism, while others look it an attempt to centralizing the power and thus jeopardizing the autonomy of the institution. Moreover, this single regulatory body of higher education will have 14 members. Out of these 14 members, we will have only 4 academicians among them. 2 are vice chancellor and 2 are professor. In the feedback, we can demand more representation of academicians in this regulatory body. Moreover, this regulatory body does have more powers. If any institution doesn't comply the guidelines of UGC, what UGC does, it simply stops the grant. But this regulatory commission has the power to impose penalty and even punishment to the defaulter college up to 3 years. This commission can award the imprisonment up to 3 years. The most difficult of every policy is the implementation. What the problems we are going to face in the implementation? First is the national education policy stress the medium of instruction until at least the 5th grade will be in regional language or mother tongue. This is a welcome step, as the mother tongue plays a crucial role in the overall development of children. It provides personality identity, connects the culture, and crucial for cognitive development. But in the new scheme, English will only be offered from the secondary level children. But for the families who can't afford to polish their children's English competition will lose out an opportunity. But it is still, while English still holding the dominant position as the medium of instructions and the demand of local language only at the local area. So this is the matter of great concern what position English should occupy in this educational system. Moreover, it is still unclear if this medium of instruction will not be imposed on private English medium schools as well. If it is not imposed on private school, then parents would prefer to private school irrespective of their paying capacity. Next is the early childhood education. Early childhood education, as we have earlier discussed at the foundational level, it would be through Anganwadi or pre-primary school as it happens in private schools, but Anganwadi worker is not professionally trained teachers. The government stated that Anganwadi worker would be given 6-month training online, but this is not enough for early childhood case. Moreover, for every school level education system, presence of the teacher is must. All the education system depends upon the availability of the teacher. Now we have one teacher for 80 to 100, but the ideal model is 20 to 30 so that teacher can concentrate on every child. We have adopted the multidisciplinary method, multidisciplinary approach, but this cannot be implemented in the rural schools where is the scarcity of teachers is too much. To implement this policy at the school level, the ratio of student-teacher ratio should be improved. Another challenge is, as per the Unified District Information on School Education, Department of School Education, Government of India, only 9.8% of government schools have functional computer, only 4% have an internet connection. If the infrastructure is so poor, how can we make our school technological well sufficient? Moreover, present poor infrastructure, some schools don't have good buildings, some don't have toilet facility. In this, the lacking infrastructure, the policies implementation, policies goal cannot be achieved. The most important thing, the expenditure. The policy has fixed targeted 6% of GDP for the experiment. Our first policy was made in 1968, and then the target expenditure was 6% of the GDP, which was not achieved till time. In the present scenario, we have 4.14% of the GDP in 2014 and 15. In the Corona period, we are spending only 3.2%. And after what this meager resources, how can we think of implementation of the policy? Moreover, this new policy also suggests a cap on fee charged by private institutions in the higher education. This must be implemented with strictly so that maximum students can get the access of institution. If the commission or government doesn't provide the grants to the higher education institutions, the burden will be shared by the students. If there will be more privatization, then there will be more commercialization, and in the commercialization, education will be out of the reach of the poor people. So in this webinar, I think we must deliberate on all the issues so that we can send our feedback to the government. In these concluding words, I would like to convey my thanks to the organizing team for providing me the opportunity to share the views. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, madam. Madam is a great warrior, and not only in the field of academics, but also recently madam defeated a corona. So madam, I salute you. Thank you very much for your valuable thoughts. And now I shift mic to Shri Brajesh. But very first, I want to tell you something about Brajesh, advocate Punjab and Haryana High Court. Advocate Brajesh is young, energetic, and multi-dimensional personality. He did his BA LLB honors from Punjab University Chandigarh campus. He participated in many moot court competitions and won Best Team awards. He has published a number of research papers in national as well as international journals. He has chaired a session on the topic risk of nuclear proliferation in the Middle East in the international conference organized by Uni Global International College, Kathmandu, Nepal. In January 2018, he has
Sir, you are not audible. Is it just me, or is it my network problem, or is it network problem by your side? Like, can someone tell me?
Yes.
It is on sir side.
There was a disturbance, yes, definitely. But now I restart. Very first, I want to share the profile of Mr. Brajesh, advocate, Punjab and Haryana High Court. And Advocate Brajesh is young, energetic, and multi-dimensional personality. He did his BA LLB honors from Punjab University Chandigarh campus. He participated many moot court competitions and won best team awards. He has published a number of research papers in national as well as international journals. He has chaired a session on the topic risk of nuclear non-proliferation in Middle East in the international conference organized by Uni Global International College, Kathmandu, Nepal. In January 2018, he has chaired 2 more international conferences organized in Kathmandu, Nepal. He has also written chapters in books and articles in journals. Recently, he has written an article titled the COVID health ramification of COVID-19 pandemic and of United Nations, the journal World Focus in July 2020. A number of guest lectures also goes into the credit of Advocate Brajesh. Now I shift mic to Mr. Brajesh, Advocate Punjab and Haryana High Court, for his valuable thoughts on the implementation of new policy. Over to Mr. Brajesh, Advocate Punjab and Haryana High Court.
Thank you so much for your kind words. I'll try to justify the same. Firstly, can anyone see the PPT on my screen?
Yes, sir.
Please clarify.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So let's get started. Let's get started. As you all can see, the topic of my presentation is language conundrum vis-a-vis the new education policy 2020. So before starting, I would like to share a couple of things. There was a person called Soren Kierkegaard. He's called the father of existentialism, right? He said the present age is a reflective age wherein we prefer abstractism over reality, advertisement over reality. And nowadays our thoughts are fractured by the spotlight effect. We just believe what we are made to see, and our intellectual capacities are impaired with time. So the same is happening when it comes to our opinion on the National Education Policy 2020. So I'm just talking about an aspect of the same, the language conundrum, the three language policy, 2 language policy, mother tongue policy. So let's get a clarity about the same. So firstly, as we all know, the National Education Policy states, like, as you can read, like until grade 5 or preferably till grade 8 and beyond, the mother tongue shall be the medium of instructions in public schools or private schools. We'll know this thing at a later stage, but now we need to know that mother tongue shall be the medium of instructions until grade 5, grade 8 or beyond, until university or doctorate level. So what is the rationale behind the same? The policy makers, that is in paragraph 4.10 of the National Education Policy, they believed that the cognitive benefits, they learn better if they are taught in the mother tongue. And they said that states should follow a 3 language policy, and they should take teachers from each other on deputation so that they can effectively implement the 3 language policy. So this is basically for the South Indian states, that they can depute teachers from states like Uttar Pradesh so that they can teach Hindi to their kids. So basically the very first thing is that the South Indian states are never in favor of 3 language policy. So what is 3 language formula? So first one will be, as we all know, mother tongue. Second one is going to be English. And what is the third language, right? The South Indian states, they are not in favor of English, right? They do not want to study English. They think that English. Sorry, I'm so sorry. They are not in favor of Hindi. They do not want to study Hindi. So they think that Hindi is being imposed upon them. So what is the reason behind the same? There are 45% of the people in this country who speak Hindi as their first language, and still rest 55% they are not ready to accept Hindi as a national language. So this is the map of India, right? This was India during the rule of Babur, who died in 1530. He ruled over the Gangetic Plains and the Indus Valley civilization. And then the Akbar came and he ruled over this Kosali, the Malwa Plateau. And then Aurangzeb, it was only in the rule of Aurangzeb when the Mughal rule spreaded until river Godavari. I'm so sorry, it's Krishna. So let's get started and get a more clarity on the same, how the languages developed. So somewhere here between Mahanadi and Godavari, right, a language developed and the name was Odia. Because due to rivers, this area was totally isolated and therefore Odia developed. And between this Mahanadi and Godavari, right, Kannada developed. Between Godavari and Krishna, we have Tamil. And between Krishna and Kaveri, we have Telugu. And between Godavari and Tapati, we have Marathi. So these regions were totally isolated from each other, and resultantly languages developed in India. And it was only during the Mughal rule when we had a pan-India empire I'm talking about the medieval India. So we had a pan-India empire. And after the death of Aurangzeb, only within 100 years, we had many fiefdoms and the Mughal empire broke down. And therefore, we never had a country that exists now until the British unified this country. So therefore, we do not have a single language in this country. So let's get started. So the constitutional makers, they were of the opinion that it is the duty of the central government to promote the spread of Hindi language. And they wanted to develop it in such a fashion that it becomes the medium of communication for all official purposes of the union and the state. Right? Then what happened after that? There were huge protests. Like this was the temporary provision in the original constitution that Hindi shall be the official language of the union and English shall be the official language for 15 years. And before this 15 years could expire, there were huge protests. People, they sat on indefinite hunger strikes, and then government had to come to their demands and brought the official Languages Act of 1963 before the expiry of 15 years, what was mentioned in the constitution. They said for all the official purposes of the union, Hindi along with English shall be the official language. So it was the failure of the governments back then, and it's been more than what you can say 70 years that we are still stuck in that stalemate. Now, let's talk about national education policy and mother language, what it has to say. So firstly, is it the first time that a national education policy is talking about mother language? No, not at all. National education policy of 1986 also believed that primary education must be imparted in mother tongue, and along with that, there should be regional educations must be promoted at university stage, 3-language formula, Sanskrit. Nothing has changed since then, and there is huge upsurge in the media that this is a new concept. No, this is not a new concept, right? So that's what, when I say that media changes our perceptions, we are made to think that for the first time regional languages are brought, or mother tongue shall be the medium for primary education. No, not at all. And let's talk about it further. I mean, we all know it is an empirical reality that in public sector schools, the regional language is the medium of instructions. So this is something not new. And we have constitutional mandate directions to the government as well. Adequate Article 358, 350A, adequate facilities for instructions in the mother tongue at primary stage of education to children. 350B, the president should appoint special officer for linguistic minorities to investigate all matters related to constitutional safeguards for linguistic minorities. So this is something not new. This is all that exists, and media is creating a propaganda of the same. So this is, everything is old, nothing is new. So let's discuss the merits of primary education in mother tongue. Firstly, there's better communication with parents, grandparents, and moreover, there's better communication with teachers. Why I say that? Of course, the children can communicate more than mundane terms with their parents, grandparents. They can, regional languages and cultural knowledge can be carried to the next generation if primary education is in this mother tongue. So I'll tell my own experience. I'm the alumni of Mount Carmel School, Hoshiarpur. So a child came who migrated from CBSE to our school, ICSE, and he wanted to use the washroom. He asked, okay, can I go to washroom? The teacher said, you can, but you may not. And he was totally perplexed, and he couldn't go to washroom until someone told him that you should ask me. I go to the washroom. So, the communication, there is a huge communication gap if the medium of instructions are in English or for that matter in any other language that the person is not native to. So then the merit is preserving mother tongue. We all know, like, the people who have been watching Punjabi news channels, especially DD Punjabi or DD News Punjabi for from past 30 years, the quality of reporting has deteriorated at a very serious level, and that is a cause of concern. And this is the reason we need to preserve our language. And if we have the primary educational structure in regional languages, we will be able to preserve our mother tongue. Then the third, UNESCO, United Nations Economic and Social Council stated that children learn better in their mother tongue because in this case the enrollment is better. They can communicate with parents and teachers in a better fashion. Rural children who have a less exposure can learn better, and the children they tend to have multilingual skills, and which is a life skill at the end of the day. So, twinkle twinkle little stars, how I wonder what you are. Children are taught this nursery rhyme, and they're made to mug up this nursery rhyme, twinkle twinkle little stars. They do not know what is twinkle, they do not know what is little, they do not know what is star, they do not know what is diamond, they do not know what is sky. So they are just made to mug up this without knowing what is the meaning of individual word. So if we have this education in native language at that stage, it is going to be an edge. So now the question comes, will this national education policy will be enforceable on private schools? The answer is no, not at all. In Pravati Educational Cultural Trust versus Union of India, the case was decided in 2014. The Honorable Supreme Court held that, the imposition of the mother tongue as medium of instructions in primary classes in government recognized unaided or aided schools, that is unconstitutional activity. So nothing is going to change in private schools. So safeguards to minority, all the Christian schools, all madrasas, nothing is going to change because they have their protection under Article 30, all minorities, whether linguistic or based on religion, they have right to establish, administer educational institutions of their choice, and state cannot interfere in their matters. So nothing is going to change, So what are the demerits of primary education in mother tongue? So firstly, there is Article 19. Why I'm discussing here? Because Article 19(1)(f), which states that you have a right to do business, job anywhere in India. Now it is a matter of common understanding that a person who studied English from nursery and the other person who studied ABC, basic linguistic skills in class 6, they would be miles apart, right? They would be miles apart, and that is a matter of common understanding. You can compare a person who studied in convent educational institutions and the person who studied in government schools. So, for example, there is a vacancy in Kerala, right? The person who studied in Punjabi medium cannot be able to do this job, and he is not able to enjoy his fundamental right, which has been granted to him under Article 19. So this is a major demerit of the same. And then other demerits of the primary education in mother tongue are, for example, the official language of Supreme Court, High Court, UPSC, and many other institutions is still English. Professional courses like law, medical, and engineering are still available in English. And good quality study material, which is one of the major demerit, that good quality study material is not available in regional languages. So what is the thing? Like, I am honors in political science along with law. So which is the best book which is available in Punjabi? That is J.S. Badial. That's all. With no disrespect to Mr. Badial, if you need to ace the subject further, you need to read A.C. Kapoor, Andrew Haywood, or there's a book of Jan, D.D. Basu. So a person who has Punjabi as a medium is always at a disadvantage because he cannot access good study material. So I'll conclude with this remark that in order for this policy to be successful, we need to develop a national language that can be English or Hindi, and we have a government who believes in democratic values in this country. I'm sure something would be resolved democratically. Thank you so much. I'm open to take questions off of myself and Dr. Kamla as she has to leave for some professional commitments. Thank you so much.
I think, sir, there is no question and there is no query. And Brajesh ji, we are really thankful for your valuable thoughts for academicians, and you have a great command over the topic. And I should also start my once again study from you, I think. So
right, so there's a query from Pritika Sharma, I guess we should let her.
Yes, please take.
Good morning, sir. I am from Ramgarhia Girls College and I am a lecturer here in a vocational subject called Early Childhood Care and Education. So this topic that you just shared, it was really close to my heart. I teach in this field. What I have observed is there's a big gap also. I mean, apart from the language part, there's a gap between the courses that exist in certain fields and they are linked to the kind of jobs that are available. There are many people who don't even know that subjects like these exist already. Like people like us, we are already working on early childhood care and education. Apart from this, my field actually is child development. So I see there are government jobs which exist, which are related to, which are like under Ministry of Women and Child Development, but somehow they do not really appoint people from these fields. So talking about these things, talking about mother tongue and stuff, we people can actually contribute to helping the government and in making the policies. But due to this gap, that we are not able to really reach out. Is there a solution, sir?
Yes, Ms. Sharma, this is a very valid point, and this only solution is that we need a national language, and that does not necessarily have to be an Indian language. A national language can be English as well. So there are countries who have adopted a foreign language and are running successfully, and the examples are Brazil has adopted Portugal, and Argentina has adopted Spanish. So we need to go beyond that and we need to build a consensus, and so that we can be very clear about this. Okay, now we have to be very clear. If a national language is developed and the citizens must have a right to access that language and everyone should speak that language, so the gap can be narrowed, but it cannot happen over a span of one night. These changes, they take like 40 to 100 years to happen. So one generation has to suffer in the transition and we cannot do much about the same.
Sure, sir.
Yes. Thank you very much, sir, Brajesh sir. And in the last, I, on the behalf of management, principal sir, faculty members, thanks to our resource persons, Dr. Kamlaji and Mr. Brajesh, Advocate Punjab and Haryana High Court, who spared his precious time from their busy schedule. Once again, I request to all the participants, kindly fill the feedback form before leaving it. We are sharing in chat box. And I am also very thankful to the participant who joined from one is Mr. Rohit from Lucknow University. He is doing his IIT. Dr. PhD from University, and Dr. And definitely these participants made this national webinar. And really, I am thankful to Dr. Kamlaji and Mr. Brajesh for their presence. Thank you very much. So please kindly fill the feedback form. Thank you, sir, and thank you, madam. Thank you.